Okay, so we were in the process of creating a payroll object group. In order to create a payroll object group, you need to go to Manage Object Groups. Using the plus symbol, you can create an object group for the payroll. Now, I'll just give a name to the object group and choose a legislation. I spoke about the legislations provided by Oracle, what are the points that needs to be considered for implementing payroll, and how the payroll and the legislation are closely linked. Now, as I already mentioned, there are 4 different types of object groups which you can create in the system. Let me create one payroll relationship type object group where you can add the employees for excluding or including in the payroll. Now, the object group could be of the type of static or dynamic. A static object group means that you can add the employees manually in the object group. So if you know the employees who needs to be the part of the set or the object group, you can use the static type of object group. Most of the time you use the static option for creating the object group. Now, if you use dynamic, that means you can use fast formulas to determine the eligibility of the employees who can be eligible for the object group. Now, let us consider that the object group is of type static. Click on continue. Now this object group has got a start and an end date. The start date is by default the date of creation, that is today's date. You can change the start date, make it in the beginning of the month. The end date will be the end of the Oracle time. So as I said earlier that you don't need to create object group for every payroll run. You can reuse the same object group by removing the employees and adding the new employees. You can add the payroll name in the object group parameters. Now if you go to the next screen, it will allow you to add the employees to the object group. Now in order to add the employees, you need to come to the last option, that is the payroll assignment, inclusion and exclusions. Use this symbol. It will create one row and then you need to click on this torch to search for the employees. You can search by assignment number, person name or person number. Click on search and then this person will get added to the object group. So this is how you create an object group and add it to the payroll for processing. The purpose of object group could be many, like you can use it for running the payroll of the late joiners. So there could be employees who have joined your company after your payroll run has completed. So maybe your payroll run has completed on 26th, but you have some 10 new hires on 29th. So in order to pay them for those 2 days, you can put these 10 people into an object group and run the payroll. The next important setup for payroll is the event group. We need to understand the concept here of the event group. Now, if you remember, we spoke about proration and the retro process while discussing the payroll yesterday. The proration and retroactive, these two are the event groups and both of them work on the trigger of data changes. So let us consider the event group called proration. Now proration, as we understand that proration means something that has got changed depending on a particular factor. For example, if we say that we have a new hire who has joined the middle of the month, definitely the person will not get the full month's salary. Now, what are the factors that decide what should be the amount of salary he should receive? Definitely his assignment start date is going to be the determining factor for the salary. So assignment start date is the factor which feeds into his proration. Now there could be another kind of example, like if you get promoted in the middle of the month, then your salary for the first 15 days of the month should be as per your previous grade or job, and for the remaining 15 days it should be as per your new job. So here the date of your assignment change or the grade change is the proration factor. So you can understand that all these triggers the proration. So the triggering factor actually feeds into the proration factor. Now, how to determine the proration factor is actually a client policy. So lot of the clients have got different calculation rule for these elements. So in some of the companies, rather I will say most of the companies, the salary changes for promotion because of the grade change. So when your grade changes, automatically you fall into the new salary range. So grade change is a input to the proration. So you can see the examples for proration could be a person joins or leaves the organization, a person's pay rate changes during the payroll period. Similarly, retroactive is another event group which also works on the trigger of certain events. Now, the difference between retroactive event group and proration event group is that proration can happen in the past as well as in the current month. Retroactive is only about the past. So as an example of retroactive process, we can consider a scenario that today you receive your June salary. Now you got promoted in the month of January this year, but the promotion was not put into the system because of the approval was not done in time. So in the month of June, you get a promotion which was effective from the month of January. So for the last 6 months, and from January until June, all these months, the extra salary that you were supposed to get will be paid in the month of June's salary. So the process, the normal payroll doesn't have the capability of doing these things, because once you have completed the payroll run for the past, the current month's payroll cannot go back and check whatever is not processed in the previous month. So the retroactive process does it for the payroll. So what the retro process does is it goes back to as many days past in as many days in the past possible until your hire date, and checks if there is any unprocessed event in the employee's payroll record. If it is there, then it will calculate the pay value for that and put it in the current month. So both the retro and proration, both of them works with the concept of the event triggers. The only difference is that proration can happen in the past as well as in the current month, but retro happens only in the past. So retro takes care of the past month's processes only. Now we can consider about a situation that you got promoted last month in the middle of the month. So on 15th of May you got promoted, and that salary needs to be paid in the month of June. So this is an example of both retroactive and proration working together. So the proration will take care of your salary that is going to be paid for the 15 days, because you got promoted on 15th of the month. So the last 15 days you should be paid the excess salary. And retroactive takes care of the fact that your promotion actually happened in the past, that is in the last month. So it will calculate the extra payment that you were eligible from the last month and create it as an arrears in the current month. So both this retro and proration works on the same concept, that is the trigger. Now this is it is your client's policy or the client's business rule that which all events should trigger this proration or the retroactive event group. In order to create a retroactive event group, you need to go to the payroll calculation work area. And then go to manage event groups. Now you can see there are two event groups, proration and retroactive type. We'll check one proration event group. Okay, so here you can see which all are the entities that gets that decides what should be your factors for proration. Now here you can see the element entry has been selected for the proration. So if you have an element, let's say basic salary, and the salary value changes with your promotion or grade change or anything, and then the element will be processed with the different value before the promotion and with the new value after the promotion. If you go to edit, then you can see you can add more entities to this. So it's only element entry at the moment. Now if you want to add grade change or assignment change, you can do that. So these are all the table names for all assignments and all, and then you can select which all columns for the table are eligible for the proration. Now all the columns like the grade change, the work hours change, location change, department change, all are actually part of the parole assignments if table. So you need to decide, I mean, when you do the requirement gathering of payroll, you need to decide which all data points you want to be a part of the proration group. Exactly the same thing applies for the retro. Retro is another event group, and you can add the data points on which you want the triggers to happen for generating this retro and the proration. Now, once you have created the proration event and the retro event, the place where you need to attach them is at your element definition. So if you remember the element entry screen, there are placeholders for the retroactive group and the proration group. So you can create the groups here and attach it to the element level. Now, this was so far about the setup things related to the payroll. Now, I have put one slide called payroll processing just to understand what happens inside the payroll engine when you run the payroll. So after you have created the payroll definition and you have created your elements, then you are ready to run the payroll. Now, this slide will explain what exactly happens inside the payroll engine. We do not need to understand exactly what happens inside the payroll engine because those are all seeded processes given by Oracle, and we really don't have any scope to change anything there, and we don't need to change. What is important is that only two things, rather three things we need to understand here. That is why I put this slide. So we need to understand how fast formulas are related to payroll processing, how balances play an important role in the payroll processing, and also how the costing plays an important role in the payroll processing. Now, if you start from the first process, what happens in the payroll engine is that when you start the payroll, it identifies the payroll relationships to process. That's the first box. Now here comes all your eligibility processes and the object groups. So when you submit the payroll process, if you attach the object groups, it will find out which all are the payroll relationships or which all are the employees that it needs to process. Also, the assignment status of the employee plays an important role for payroll processing. If the assignment status specifies that the payroll should not be processed for this employee, then this payroll engine will not include that employee for the payroll run. So once it has identified which all employees it needs to process, then it moves to the next step, that is create payroll relationship actions. Payroll relationship actions is actually an action factor that it creates for each of the payroll relationships. And for each of the payroll relationship, it creates an action for the elements that it processes and puts in the memory of the payroll engine. Now, this processes, even though I'm telling it in only one word, but each of the processes are extremely complicated and involves a lot of underlying tables. We don't need to know those details, but there, each and every process is seeded and extremely complicated. Now, after it has created the payroll relationship, then it goes over to the elements. The payroll processes all the elements that is marked as process in payroll run. Also, if you have one element group that is added to your payroll process, then it will process only that particular elements. Now it processes the earnings, deductions, and the taxes and other liabilities. The processing of the element depends on the priorities of the element. So the lowest priority gets processed first and then the highest priorities. The priority of the elements also play an important role in the designing of the payroll. Now after it has picked up the elements, then it checks what all are the formulas attached to the elements. The formulas are nothing but your client's business rules. Now, if there is only pay value attached to an element, it will not check the formula. So if you have a pay value, it will completely ignore the formula. And if you don't have the pay value populated, then it will check the formulas. Now, formulas are the biggest part of payroll. So whatever we have discussed so far, including yesterday and today's half of the session, are actually 20% of payroll. Remaining 80% of payroll are formulas. So that is why it's very important to understand how the payroll formulas work. And that's why we have created a separate session for the payroll formulas for tomorrow. And for payroll consultants, it's even though it's a functional consultant, a payroll consultant necessarily needs to know how to write a payroll fast formula. Payroll fast formulas could be complex, and there are syntaxes for the formulas which we need to understand, and we need to understand how to write a payroll formula in a, like, it's both logical and technical, and at times it can get very tricky and quite complicated. Even if you're coming from an EBS background and you have handled payroll formulas in EBS, we need to know how the payroll formulas work in Fusion, because it's quite different from the way it used to work in EBS. The concept remains the same, but the way we write the formulas, the kind of syntax that we use, and the kind of items or the database items that we use in the formulas have changed completely. So after running the fast formulas, it creates the run result values. Run result values are nothing but the payment amounts for the elements. These payments amounts automatically feeds into the balances that are attached to the element. I will talk about balances in some times. Now, with the payroll run, it also calculates the costing of the elements. Costing is important from the general ledger or the finance point of view. Costing is the way through which the general ledger or the finance talks to the payroll. So you have any questions so far? Or I will go into the balances and the costing process. Okay, so I have, after this slide, I have three more things to discuss. One is the formulas, fast formulas. I will just give you an example of how the fast formula looks like, a very small formula, because we will have a full session on the fast formulas tomorrow. And then I will talk about balances. I will give you a brief idea about how costing is important, how it plays an important role. And in my next session, we will do a full session of the costing, because we need to understand how costing hierarchy happens and what all other points we should consider while giving a costing solution. Okay. So this is the payroll fast formulas. Now, payroll fast formulas are a type of fast formulas, because we don't use fast formulas only for payroll. We use it for different other things. We use it for widely for other modules like talent management, compensation, benefits. We use it widely for creating eligibility profile for any module, the custom eligibility profile. So the formula type determines in which module it's going to be used. So payroll fast formulas are of type Oracle Payroll. So I have put some properties and the usage of the fast formula, or the purpose of the fast formula, in this slide. What basically the first formulas does is they do calculation. They have some inputs, they do some calculation inside, and then they can compare the values that you want, and then they can return a calculated value. So the way that elements work, the different elements work is, you put your business rule for calculation of the elements in the fast formula and attach it to the element. So if you say that your basic salary is actually number of hours worked multiplied by the rate, so then you need to attach one formula to the basic salary element so that it reads your rate from your assignment details, and it reads your number of hours worked from the input values, and that way it returns your pay value in the run results. So the payroll fast formulas gets triggered by running the payroll. Any other module, the way the fast formulas get triggered are different. Now, another usage of fast formula is for having the skip rule, which is the fourth point here. Skip rules are like putting is kind of an eligibility profile. Using skip rule, we can skip the processing of the element for certain employees. So we can create the skip rules, attach it to the element, and then when we run the payroll, that particular element is skipped for processing for those kind of assignment, which is configured in the fast formula. Now, the last point is not important anymore, because here it says that customize the predefined proration formula to control how payroll runs prorate element entries. Now, previously, I mean, in earlier releases like release 7 and release 8, we didn't have so many factors for proration. We only had element entries for proration factor. Now we have later releases like release 10, 11. We have lot of proration events or proration events given by Oracle. We have the entire assignment table given by Oracle to attach to the proration group. But earlier we didn't have this. So at that time, we used to write fast formulas to take care of proration and the retro. But with the current release, we don't need to do that anymore. Okay. Now in the next slide, I have put just an example of the fast formula, payroll fast formula. Now payroll fast formula works based on HR data item, which we call as database items. So HR data items are like employee details, like employee assignment details, employee grade, employee job, all these things. So payroll run entirely depends on the HR data or the HR setup. From payroll, nothing goes back to the HR, but from HR, everything feeds into payroll. So before going into the payroll module or before starting your payroll build, you need to make sure that the HR build is complete. So this is a very simple fast formula. In plain words, this fast formula, what it does is it checks what is the job of an employee, and depending on a particular job, it returns the amount of an element. So let us consider this is the basic salary of an employee. This formula is calculating the basic salary of an employee. Now what it does is it checks the job. If the job is manager, then it returns the basic salary as 2500. Otherwise it returns 1000. So what we need to do is we somehow need to fetch the employee job in the fast formula. The way we fetch the job is using database items. So if you see from the top, it specifies a database item. A default for ASG underscore job is defaulted to a blank value. Now this ASG underscore job is the database item which we are going to compare with the name of manager, the job name of manager, and then we are going to return the value. So this is a very basic fast formula. In reality, the fast formulas are quite a lot complicated, not as simple as this. So I just put this formula in order to give you an idea about how the fast formula looks like. So when you have your fast formula session tomorrow, you will go through much more complicated fast formulas and different syntax that are important for the fast formula, writing the fast formula. Since the fast formula consists 80% of payroll, so it is important that we understand how the formulas work, and also how to write the fast formulas and how to design the fast formulas rather for the payrolls. Now after the fast formulas, we will talk about payroll balances. You saw that as a part of payroll run, the payroll balances gets updated. Now payroll balances are nothing but a result of the holding of the payroll run result values in the payroll element. So if you see the definition, payroll balances show the accumulation of values over a period of time. So if we say that what is the year to date figure or what is the period to date figure of a particular element, then we need to refer to the balances. So this year to date or period to date, these are known as balance dimensions. So the payroll balances gets created by default when you create an element. So if your element, let's say if your element is basic salary, so basic salary year to date or basic salary YTD is the name of the payroll balance. So it works in this way. YTD and PTD, I mean year to date and period to date, these are some very basic balance dimensions. There are a lot of other dimensions available. YTD means year to date dimension. So the any point of time the YTD dimension holds the value paid to the employee until date from the first day of his hire. So if we say that you were hired in the company 5 months back with the basic salary of 1000, so today, on the 5th month, your year-to-date value is 5 times 1000. I mean, it's a sum of how much value you have been paid from your first day until today. So this is the YTD balance. Similarly, you can have a different dimension called PTT or period to date. PTD dimension holds the value of the current period. So you're running the payroll this month. PTT value will be 1000 for basic salary because this month you're paid only 1000 for your basic. Now this is I gave you an example of the element where we are using the money for the balance. Now there could be other unit of measures as well. There could be hours, there could be any other numeric values which are holding the balance. Also the balance, when the balances are created, they generate database items. These database items can be widely used in the fast formulas. As you saw earlier that the fast formula was using this assignment job as database item. Similar way the balance database items also can be used in the fast formulas. So in order to create a payroll balance, you need to go to the payroll calculation work area and go to manage balance definitions. Most of the time the balances that we use in our formulas are all predefined. So the way the predefined balances come into picture is that when you create an element, automatically the balances get created. So if let's say we are creating a basic salary element, so the balance also will have the same name as basic salary with the dimensions appended. So here you can see we have a balance called basic salary, and when we open the balance we can see the dimensions. Okay, so these are all the dimension names. There are assignment inception to date, assignment month to date. Quite a lot of balance dimensions are involved. You can use each of these dimensions appended with the balance name is actually a database item which you can use in your fast formulas. So most of the time we use this balance called relationship year to date. Balances are important for reporting your payroll figures to the government body. In a particular year, how much salary have you paid to your employees, how much taxes you have deducted, all these things you may or may not need to report to the government authority of the country. So that's where these balances play a very vital role from audit point of view as well. Now, after the payroll balances, next important piece of information is payroll costing. Now, payroll costing is the functionality of payroll which actually integrates the payroll results with the finance. Now, payroll costing can happen at various levels. We will talk about that. But before everything, we need to understand what all are the components of payroll costing. Payroll costing is mainly used to create journal entries for payroll run results and payments, so that each and every payment that you make to your employee can be costed in the finance. Now here I have put together the components of payroll costing. Now there are 5 components. You don't need to worry about the first 3 components from the top because they are related to finance or cash management. The area of interest for payroll is the last 2, that is the cost allocation key flex field and payroll costing accounts. Now, cost allocation key flex field is, for payroll, the cost allocation key flex field is just like a no-brainer. We create this flex field at payroll end, but what we need to create, that actually comes from the finance. So the finance needs to decide what should be the structure of the cost allocation key flex field and should inform that to the payroll so that we can create exactly the same structure in payroll. So in order to create the cost allocation key flex field, we need to go to the setup and maintenance. This is the job of a payroll administrator. You cannot do it from the payroll calculation work area. You need to go to the setup and maintenance. So the task that is responsible for creating cost allocation key flex field is manage cost allocation key flex field. Getting an error. I'll just try to log back. I'll go inside an implementation project and try to open this link. Okay. This cost allocation key flex field is also legislation specific. So if you have more than one countries for which you are doing the implementation, even though they have the same kind of cost allocation structure, you need to create cost allocation separate structure for each of them. Now I'm not sure why I'm not able to get into the cost allocation. Let me try another way. Okay, so this is giving me a problem to get inside the cost allocation key flex field. Let me use another instance for this. I'm not sure why it's taking so long to open this. Let's just wait for a few minutes. Maybe the instance is a bit too slow. Okay, let me try another instance. Okay, so I'm able to open the cost allocation key flex field in another instance. What we need to do is, this is the cost allocation flex field, and the flex field name is defined by Oracle. What we need to do is we need to understand how many segments we need to create in the cost allocation key flex field. The number of segment, the name of the segment, the design, order, everything has to be decided by finance, and we need to, they need to let us know. So once we are here in the cost allocation key flex field, we need to go to the manage structures. Here you can create the structure codes. Now, okay, so this is a fresh instance. I wanted to show you one ready instance with the cost allocation key flex field structure, but this is a fresh instance where there is no cost allocation key flex field structure available. So in order to create the structure, you need to create this, use this create button. What happens is the cost allocation key flex fields have got segments. Most of the time it's a 5 segment or a 4 segment key flex field. So using this add symbol, you can create the cost allocation key flex field. So we could create the structure codes. It's like if we think in lemon terms, it is like segment 1, segment 2, like that. So you can create segment structure code and segment name, and you can choose a particular delimiter. You can make it either pipes or dots, and then create the 4 or 5 segments that you need. Once you have created the segment structure, you are kind of ready to add the cost allocation or the costing flex field structure to your elements or any other level that you want. Most of the times the cost allocation or the costing is attached to the element. Now there are various levels in which you can attach the costing. You can do the costing at element entry level, you can do the costing at the link level, you can do the costing at employee level, payroll level, department level, job level. So all these places you can define the costing. Now where to define the costing, that is a payroll decision, but what will be the structure of the costing flex field is actually a HR finance decision. So I don't think we have time today to discuss about the cost allocation, like the point we need to consider for the costing structure. That will lead into another 1 hour discussion, so let's have it later. I have my next session I'll have on 1st of July, so I'll show you the hierarchy, how the costing works, the costing process works, and hopefully by the time I'll get one of the instance up and running in which the cost allocation is configured. So you will have a better idea about how it works, and in a real-time scenario, what are the generic values of the cost allocation flex fields. Okay, so I'll complete today's session. If you have any question, you can ask me now, or I'll just wait for 5 minutes and close the session. Okay, so thank you all for attending the session. Let me know if you have any questions. You can let me know over the email. And if you come across any requirement during the payroll implementation, you can let us know. We will try to resolve the same. I got a question if I can talk about the hierarchy of costing in Fusion. Sure, in my next session I'm planning to talk about that. It will take 1 hour of time at least to explain the hierarchy and to explain how the costing process works. So we have, I think, some 10 minutes left in this session, so that's why I'm not starting that today. we have one more session. I mean, rather two more sessions we have. One of them will be past formulas. That's tomorrow, and day after we'll have the costing session. That time I'll discuss about the hierarchy. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good day.